love these moments. I love the moments when somebody comes in and asks for help. They're struggling to understand their relationships and they just want help. And whenever we can use typology, the goal of typology is to be able to bring that and use it in the real world. And that's going to be in all of your relationships. That is going to be with your coworkers, with your boss, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, your spouse, and especially your relationships with your parent or your child. And whenever you understand typology, you can use it in the real world to help with those relationships. And I'm going to explain to you a relationship between a parent and child, and it was a young mother who came into a forum and said, I'm at my wit's end. I am struggling with my young ENTJ child, and everything seems like a debate. Everything's an argument, and I don't know how to thread that needle and work on communication. Can somebody please help? So if you are somebody who struggles in your relationship with your parent or your child, watch this video. It's so important for you. And I just want to jump right in. Let's get started. So we have an ENTJ child, and we have an INFJ mother and an INFP father. So the first thing that we want to do is look at the child's dominant cognitive function. And for an ENTJ, that's going to be extroverted thinking. That's going to be TE. So I want you to look at where TE falls for the other two people. So you have the father, and where is TE? TE is in his inferior function. So right away, you have the son and you have the father who are opposites, who are going to be right away kind of triggering each other whenever they're trying to communicate with each other. So when the young child it feels like for the father is being combative by wanting to TE and wanting to figure it out and logic it out and say, that doesn't make sense, or asking another question. And for the father, because it's his inferior, he's going to feel like he's being triggered. That's how it's going to feel to him. Now, it's really important to point out that there is nothing that the child is doing wrong. This is very, very important. There's nothing that the child is doing wrong. This is their personality type. This is how they see the world, how they engage with the world. He's trying to understand the logic. And yeah, it might feel like to them that he's being argumentative, but he's not. He's wanting to know, well, that doesn't make sense, or why is this like this, or you said this last time. And so for the father, that might feel triggering, like you're doing this to be spiteful. You're doing this and you're arguing with me. And he might tell the son and say, hey, that was rude. You're not being very nice, or that's not the way you should ask that. So what's happening to the child? So the child's inferior is introverted feeling, and that's going to trigger them. So the father and the son are just kind of triggers for each other right away. And this is where we need to understand that dynamic and what's happening, especially for the father. He's the adult here, needs to go, you know what, I need to calm down, and I need to not take it personally. I need to understand that this is just information, and that's how I need to treat it. Whenever he asks me a question, I need to see it as he wants to know more information, or he's trying to understand that information. The son is not doing that to be combative. That's how he's trying to understand his world. And for the mother, let's look at the mother real quick here for the INFJ. Now, her TE, extroverted thinking, is down in what we call the unconscious functions. And really what that means, to simplify it, is to say that it's going to be something that is not very important for her. It's not something that she's going to want to do very often. And that's why she's saying this is exhausting. So it's not a trigger for her, but she is after a while gonna get kind of exhausted by it. Now, what we have going on in this dynamic is you have a father getting triggered, the mother waving it off, and that child not being able to TE with his parents, not having that encouraged and not having that understood. And I see this in so many people who will come to me and say, I'm having this problem with my child. I'm having this problem with my parent. And if you understand, and I'm talking about you watching this, if you can understand these cognitive functions, a lot of times you can take the personal out of it and say, they're not being mean, it's just their type. And I said for the mother, so try to listen to it as information. Try to understand what the point is that he's trying to get across. And that doesn't mean that the boy doesn't sometimes need to hear and go, hey, you're being a little rude. Hey, you're being a little aggressive. Let's tone it down. And that's true too. But if you're constantly just trying to control him by saying you're not feeling a certain way, then you're just keep putting him in his inferior. And that's going to be very hurtful to him in the long run. Now, the mother comes back a few days later and says, I had an epiphany. I was doing some homework with my child, and we were reading the test questions, and we said, okay, you're walking down the street, you come to a stop sign, what do you do? And the young boy looked at it and he said, it doesn't make any sense. And so right away she just wanted to throw her hands up and like, oh my gosh, are you really going to argue this? Is this really going to be another debate? And so she tries to calm herself down, says, okay, let me try to understand his information. Why is he seeing it like this? And she says, what do you mean? And he said, well, it doesn't make any sense. When you're walking down the street and you come to a stop sign, you don't do anything. And so again, she's like, well, you stop. And he said, no, you don't. So she calms herself down, says, can you explain what you mean by that? And he says, whenever a car is going and they come to a stop sign, they stop. When you're walking, you're just a person walking, you don't do anything. The stop sign is for cars, it's not for people. And she's like, wow, you're right. You're right. You know what? That makes a lot of sense. Now that you kind of explain it to me, why it didn't make sense to you, the logic doesn't check out. You're right. You're walking down the street and you see a stop sign. What do? Nothing. You keep walking. The stop signs are not for people. And I think that helped her so much to understand and go, maybe sometimes I need to just stop and listen and try to understand the information and say, you're not doing this to be rude. You're not doing this to be mean. This is how you think. This is how you understand the world. And if I can understand that, I can change my relationships. If I can understand that, I can change the way I hear and communicate information. If I understand that, my life can change.